listening to the IELTS podcast. Learn from tutors and ex-examiners who are masters of IELTS preparation. Your host, Ben Worthington.
Hello there, podcast listeners. This episode is all about IELTS topics and answers. We're going to mainly focus on globalisation questions. And this is because I think if we just dance around different topics, for example, education, then go to technology, and then come back to, globalisation, we're not going to go as deep. Because if we just focus on globalisation, hopefully we'll hear numerous phrases and hopefully collocations repeated more times. And the more times you hear them, the more likely you are to remember them. So what we're going to do in this episode is look at IELTS Task 2 questions. And I'm going to give you sort of like a structure, just a way of attacking the answer so that we can develop strong, coherent answers, essays. So let's just jump straight into it. Many countries now face an economic downturn, so it is better for each country to focus on its own problems rather than helping other countries. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Use specific reasons and examples to support your position. Now, let's imagine we're in the exam. We want to break this down, make it simple so we can start generating answers. Many countries now face an economic downturn. Is it better to help them, or is it better to sort out our own problems, assuming that we are the country with the economic downturn? So, should countries be helped or not helped? Okay, let's go with it. I think, to what extent do you agree? I strongly agree. Now then, I'm not going to go into my introduction now. I'm just going to focus on my body paragraphs. What am I going to write about for the body paragraphs? So I strongly agree that we should help other countries. Okay, if we help them, they will not become failed states because, and by failed state, this means countries that are very, very poor and are just not functioning. Maybe the mafia, maybe organized crime is basically running that country. This happens in the poorest of poor countries. So if we help the country, if international aid, instead of we help, if international aid is allowed, then it's much less likely the country will fall into becoming a failed state. And this will improve security. Okay? So that's one logical argument. There's a good example there as well. And that can be the basis of body paragraph number 1. And I'm not thinking about sentences yet. I'm just thinking about ideas. Now I'll think about body paragraph 2. So let's see. Why would helping other countries... okay, so let me think. Is it better for a country to focus on its own problems rather than helping other countries? No, we're strongly against that. We strongly agree it's a country should not focus on its own problems. We strongly think that countries should help other countries. Let's think of another reason. Let's see. Because if they help them, then we can't say security risk, failed state. Well, we can say that if they help the other country, then there may be possibly less immigration from the poor country to the rich country. Okay? There we go. And this would help both societies. For example. Okay, and now we can go into an example. What example could we give? Well, we could say the European Union distributes large amounts of funding to the Eastern European countries, which are generally more which are generally less economically developed, and this creates jobs, and infrastructure and opportunities, which is said to reduce the flow of immigration. Okay, so it's just one example there. So you can see we've got these two ideas now, and these two ideas are for our body paragraphs, and we've written this down in our notes, and now we can do an introduction and we can do a conclusion. So basically we're good to go now. We can start writing. We can write this introduction, and we're basically going to say, we're basically going to paraphrase the question, and then we'll just give a slight indication about what we're going to talk about in the next paragraphs, which are helping the other countries will increase stability because there will be less chance of it falling into a failed state, and full stop. Another reason would be that immigration flows could be reduced and perhaps even stabilized. Okay, and then we're going to jump into it in the two body paragraphs. Then conclusion is quite straightforward, something similar to the introduction. Okay, so that was topic globalization, and the answer was for that specific question. Many countries now face an economic downturn, so it is better for each country to focus on its own problems rather than helping other countries. Strongly disagree. We should help other countries because then there's a possibility they won't become failed states, which increases the security of the other countries. And next paragraph, it can, if we help the other countries, notice this is like spoken English. If we help the other countries, no. We want to be doing academic English, so we wouldn't say if we want to help, we would say helping another country would possibly decrease the flows of immigration, which is possibly beneficial for both countries, the sending and the receiving country, the European Union, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so there we go, straightforward. Let's do another one. And why not pause the video and just try and use this technique we're using today, the technique of just getting some ideas and then building around these ideas. And like I've said before, this will help you. If you know all you have to do is get two ideas, then it just makes it a lot easier. It's like a system to follow. And like I said before, this is covered in the online course, and the teacher will help you to practice this system, and you'll get feedback as well, which really makes for fast improvement. So let's carry on. In many public places, the use of secret video cameras is being increased with the aim to reduce crime. But some people believe that this restricts individual freedom. Do the benefits of increased secret security outweigh the drawbacks? Right then. Once again, what I'll say is I strongly agree. Okay? I strongly agree that the benefits of increased secret security outweigh the drawbacks. Let's see. So why does this... once again, let's go through this system. Let's go through the process. Two ideas. From these two ideas, we can build a paragraphs. So let's go. Let's see. Do the benefits of increased video secret security, outweigh the drawbacks? No, they don't. The reason why they don't outweigh the drawbacks is because crime is obviously reduced. Okay, because culprits get caught. Good vocabulary there, culprits. The culprits get caught, and get their sentences served. So that's one. Second reason, let's see. Say this restricts individual freedom. So let's not just totally ignore the question about, because it does mention individual freedom. So just to show the examiner we've read this question and we're staying on topic, the second paragraph will will mention individual freedom, but we'll just discount it afterwards. So we could say, second reason why increased video security is beneficial for the city or public area is because it actually increases individual freedom, because now people feel safer and are more likely to relax or to be relaxed, as opposed to constantly scanning the area looking for potential threats. Okay, so bit of an imaginative leap there, but it's not totally out of the question. Okay, and like I said before, this is a language exam, so the quality of your idea, it has to be reasonable. Okay, and it doesn't have to be, well, first of all, it has to be reasonable. It can't be outrageous. It has to be reasonable and believable. Secondly, it doesn't have to be your personal opinion. Okay, for example, I might be completely against the use of video surveillance, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to say it's better because I think in this case it's easier to write an essay saying that it's easy, that it's better. So let's see. Paragraph 1, it decreases crime. Paragraph 2, it increases individual freedom because people often feel more relaxed and more likely just to focus on the activities rather than scanning for potential threats. Okay, so there we go. Those are the 2 body paragraphs. We'll probably try and include an example in there as well, which is quite easy to do. And obviously in the introduction, we'll get to grips with paraphrasing. We'll paraphrase the question, mention our 2 ideas that we're going to talk about. And obviously, like I said, the conclusion will be something similar to the introduction. Probably, I don't know, possibly just restating and confirming. Okay, so those are the 2 questions. Let's do another one about globalization. And I'll read this one to you now. I don't think it's a difficult one. Every country should produce enough of everything that the country needs, so it does not have to rely on imports. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? Okay, so let's see. Some good collocations here just before we start is self-sufficient, okay, international trade. I think some more will come as we delve deeper. So let's go. Do I agree or disagree with this statement? Every country should produce enough of everything that the country needs, so it does not have to rely on imports. Okay, so I will disagree with this. Basically, the reason why in this case is because back in my high school, I had an amazing economics teacher called Mr. Sykes, and he really sold his idea on free trade and globalization, and I still remember his arguments today. So fortunately for me, I can give a reasonably good or reasonably thoughtful answer. But like I said before, it doesn't matter. It only has to be reasonable and realistic. So let's see. First, I disagree. This is my position. I disagree. Reason 1 is that some countries produce stuff better than other countries. Okay? Like Japan produces better electronic products than Nigeria, for example. It's quite straightforward. Yep. And for example, if Nigeria wanted to produce its own electronics products, they would probably be really expensive. So that's probably argument number 1. And I could use that example of Japan and Nigeria. argument number 2 or point number 2 would be that it would be crazy for a country like Spain or let's say a country like Norway to produce olives or try to produce olives because there's no sunshine in Norway. Whereas if they imported them from Spain, where there is a lot of sunshine, then it's going to come out cheaper. Okay? I could go into this further, talking about comparative advantage and all this economic theory, but there's just no point. This is an IELTS essay. I'm just going to give reasonable, normal arguments that are believable, and that's it. I'm just going to use examples as well that are quite straightforward. So, as you can see, I mean, if you do know about a topic, you do not have to go into it. If you don't have to show off to the examiner that you know about Ricardo's trade advantage and Adam Smith's, Adam Smith's book about international free trade. You don't need this free market economics and all that. All you need to do is just give 2 reasonable, logical, believable positions, and these are your opinions, and then back it up with some reasonable, logical, believable examples. Spain and Norway producing olives is preposterous. Is just crazy, and it demonstrates the point. So anyway, let's see. Do I agree or disagree? I disagree. Use specific reasons and examples to support your position, and I did. So just to summarize, basically it was the same argument both times. So like Nigeria producing electronics is crazy. Of course I'm going to use different language, but it's crazy. It's better for them to import from Japan, who has expertise, resources and experience. Put in a nice little list there. Has expertise, resources and experience in developing these products. Whereas Nigeria has an abundance of sunshine and daylight, and would therefore be better to focus on producing agricultural products. Okay, there we go. Let's move on. Number 4, sorry. Do you think that people who work online at home are more productive than office workers, or the other way around? Give reasons and examples to support your answer. Easy. Okay, I think that people who work in the office are more productive because they have instant access to the colleagues. Good vocabulary there. They can have meetings without any latency, without any internet latency. That's the classic example of when you're talking to someone on Skype or online and your conversation is delayed by 5 seconds, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so access to workers, faster input on ideas and knowledge, and you get the benefits of team working. Okay, reason number 1. Reason number 2, at home is generally accepted that people are less productive because they get distracted by their fridge, by their television, and let's see, and are more prone, there we go, that's a good one, and are more prone to nip out for a coffee or some shopping and then come back to the home and supposedly return to work. Okay, so there we go, and we can do some put some examples in there, pretty simple as well, maybe make it sound a little bit more academic or scientific. I've talked about giving examples in previous podcasts, and yeah, it's quite a simple, straightforward process, and we cover it because it's quite easy to learn, and we cover it in the online course as well. So let's have a look at the final question. I won't go into the introduction and the conclusion because that's not really the focus of this podcast. But let's go on to the next question. Sorry. Some people claim that hardly any of the waste from factories is recycled. They say that the only way to increase recycling is for the authorities to make it a legal requirement. Okay, to what extent do you think laws are needed to make people recycle more of their waste? Or laws are needed to make factories, it's probably the better one, recycle more of their waste. So I think it is, let's see, absolutely necessary. To what extent do you think that laws are needed? So I think it's absolutely necessary that laws are needed to make factories recycle more waste. Okay, it's absolutely necessary because reason one, in a free market economy, that's another good collocation. I hope you're writing these down. In a free market economy, there is often a race to the bottom. This I'll explain in a second. So regulations are needed to protect the people, the environment, society as a whole. Okay, a race to the bottom. This means, like, for example, imagine China and America are competing, selling cars, and China lowers the regulations for making cars, making it cheaper to produce cars in China. So the US does the same and reduces its regulations. So now the factories are more dangerous, but the cars are cheaper. And then China sees that it's losing ground in the competition, so they lower their regulations. And now more people are dying in the factories, but the cars are cheaper, blah, blah, blah. This is a race to the bottom. But anyway, so in a free market economy, the laws are absolutely necessary because with the companies competing, they will inevitably strive to produce for lower costs, strive to produce at lower costs, and this usually means the environment bearing the brunt of these costs. Okay, for example, a company could just dump the pollution instead of treating it if there were no regulations around. Okay, just to better explain that, if there were no regulations around, the company could just dump the waste and produce at a cheaper cost rather than recycling it. But interestingly here, can you see I've gone off topic and I didn't mention recycling until the very last sentence there. So that's a very good example. I got off topic, started rambling about a race to the bottom. You need to focus on recycling. Okay, so restart. And this is why it's important to practice developing ideas and building paragraphs. So we stay on topic, we stay focused. So to what extent do you think laws are needed to make factories recycle more of their waste? Okay, so it's absolutely necessary that laws are present in a society, because if factories did not have these laws, they probably wouldn't recycle, because it's usually a more expensive technique compared to dumping. This is because the cost, for example, of dumping in a landfill is considerably less than separating individual components and recycling them. And then I'd give a real world example. For example, a landfill in Nigeria found that 60% of the products there could have been recycled. However, there were no rules in place to enforce this recycling. Full stop. Okay? There we go. Argument number 2, let's see. It's absolutely necessary that factories and companies are forced to recycle because there are less resources in the world. Global natural resources are being depleted at an alarming rate. That's a very good sentence as well. So basically, there's less natural resources. We should recycle, and this will also help to reduce transport costs and pollution as well. Think of an example, but we've got the gist. We've got our 2 body paragraphs. And from here, like I've said before, we can write the introduction, paraphrase, mention briefly what we're going to talk about in our next body paragraphs. Then we focus on the body paragraphs where we're going to pick up the bulk of the points. Then we do the conclusion and we're golden, as we say. So that's it. I think we learnt a lot there, especially in the final question where I went off topic. So learn from my mistake and never go off topic, because if I'd have just written an essay there about the race to the bottom, about the need for regulations, I'm off topic and I can't even get points then. So with that in mind, once again, learn from my mistakes. Remember that if you're having trouble, you can contact us. We can help you. All of what I've just talked about, we go into much more detail in the online courses, and also strongly recommend, if you're struggling with your writing, you probably need to know where you're struggling, so you can have a look at the essay correction as well at IELTS Podcast. Either way, don't worry about this. There's a team here at IELTS Podcast more than willing to help you pass the IELTS. Okay, have a great day and keep on studying. Take care.
Thanks for listening to IELTSPodcast.com.